Hey, welcome to Long Road Gamecast, the podcast for when your wife is leaving you, but you still get to play co-op.
Yeah.
I'm Jonathan, and
I'm Kendall.
And this podcast is all about games and relationships and the things that usually we would hope make the two work together. So I think we have a question first, which is why in the world are we making this podcast? Kendall, can you explain it?
Oh, I get to answer? Yeah. So long story short, I am finishing up a dual master's degree program, and Jonathan, he already finished his master's degree because he's cool like that. But I didn't finish mine yet. So I need to go back to school in the fall since we're not doing online school anymore. So Jonathan will be staying here in Virginia, which is where he works and where our home is. But I'm going to be going back to Texas to finish out school, and I'm going to be hanging out at a friend's house for the year, and we're going to play games because you can't do date night in person. So we'll do date night virtually.
And we decided to do a podcast for that because, one, it gave us a very, very niche audience that we didn't believe was covered by any other podcast in the world that looked at multiplayer games specifically from the perspective of those who are going to be playing regularly together, whether it's your friend, your significant other, someone in your life you love, and you're just far apart. So you want to game regularly, maybe you're not both like with amazing kill-death ratios in Call of Duty.
That's a nice way to say that I'm not good at video games, just so we're clear.
The secret is I'm also pretty terrible, but these things are relative, yes.
Minor details.
So we thought we would just do a podcast, and it'd be a fun thing to do to pass the time as we spend 30 minutes to an hour, depending on what we have going on each night, playing a different game each week or every other week, and then talk about it. For you all to enjoy. So I thought I would start this way. To give us a little bit of an idea of who we are, Kendall already claimed that she was terrible at video games. So I want her to talk about her first gaming memories, the sorts of games she gravitated toward, and we'll start with that. So what was your first video game, and what kind of games have you gravitated toward?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know if I remember what my first video game was, but I do remember when I was little, like probably 4, maybe 5. My dad got a PlayStation 1, which was a pretty big deal at the time. We thought we were cool stuff. I remember he got it when I was so young that I didn't play it at first. I wasn't really allowed to play it, but I thought it was fun to watch him play this like magical box where you press buttons and the little thing would do things. And I remember he had like Madden, like the original, well, I don't know if it was the original, but one of the early Maddens and a couple of other sports types games. But the first game I remember really gravitating towards, and the first one my dad taught me how to play on the PlayStation when I was allowed to play with it, was the Crash Bandicoot series, especially Crash Bandicoot 1. But I do remember when the second and the third one came out as well, and eventually CTR, Crash Team Racing. And by the time that came out, my sister was old enough to play too. So we would play a lot of CTR, a lot of Crash Bandicoot 2 and 3. I'm going to shoot straight with y'all. Again, I'm not good at video games. The first one on the PlayStation 1, it was impossible to me as a child. I could not figure it out. But I guess the second and third one, PlayStation and Activision, I think is who made it.
Naughty Dog at the time.
Oh, it was Naughty Dog at the time, yeah. But they made the second and third ones significantly easier for the small children like me and my sister. So we would play a lot of those. And then similarly, a little bit later, we also liked the Spyro trilogy, which isn't that surprising because I feel like if you were an early PlayStation 1 or PlayStation 2 person, like especially as a child, like you played Crash Bandicoot and you played Spyro, like that was what you did. So those were my games, the Crash Bandicoot trilogy and the Spyro trilogy.
So 3D platformers that weren't Super Mario 64.
Correct, yeah, because we only had the PlayStation 1 until eventually we upgraded, and I say this jokingly, to the PlayStation 2, but we didn't get the PlayStation 2 until I mean, it was pretty late. Like, the PlayStation 3 might not have been out yet, but it was pretty close. We just didn't have any sort of like Nintendo system. We didn't have an Xbox, nothing like that.
You didn't buy the PlayStation 2 to be your family's DVD player, like?
No, we had our own DVD player way before the PS2.
I had a Super Nintendo given to me by my uncle when I was only 3 years old, and I think when I was 6 is when I finally beat it. So if you think about that from the perspective of a small child, you spent the equivalent of the entirety of your life to that point playing one game. And of course, initially I was just terrible, and then I was scared of the castles, and I would give it to my dad because I would be scared of the castles.
Little Jonathan.
And then he's not any good. So eventually, when I was 6, I finally beat Bowser in the last sort of level. And that game came out the year I was born, 1991. So the Super Nintendo had already been out. And then I think around 2000, I did get an N64. I was a Nintendo kid through and through, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, GameCube. I even had the Game Boy Micro, one of my favorites. The really tiny one that could fit into your shirt pocket.
I literally didn't know this existed until like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I wish I still had it. I don't know what happened to it. It is, as you would imagine, pretty easy to lose. And those sorts of Mario games and platformers were also really big for me, though, of course, I got super into Pokemon. I actually loved the Metroid Prime. The original Metroid Prime, the kind of first-person action-adventure. And I've done a little bit of Red Alert 2 was a big thing for PC. It's like an RTS game, a real-time strategy game. And I remember my friend had it set up on a local area network that first floor and second floor PCs could play each other. And that was amazing too. But the only other systems that weren't Nintendo that I really ever gamed on was the Xbox 360, and I have an Xbox One now. Mm-hmm. And the Xbox 360, you could rip music on it. And so I'm listening to like Journey's greatest hits while playing Assassin's Creed, and you're attacking people. I was in European history at the time in high school, and I was like, yeah, the Medicis, and I learned about all this history in class, and then you're just stabbing people. Well, someday love will find you is blaring.
Nothing gets most fitting music. 80s ballad.
So that leads me to our next question. I've been really into Nintendo sort of things, Zelda, Metroid, Mario, and some puzzle games. I've just gotten back into one when I bought with one of my first paychecks when I had my first job when I was 16. Planet Puzzle League, the Puzzle League, Panel de Pon, Tetris Attack series. And I'm not any good at those either, but it is something I enjoy. So what about your favorite Switch games? Because since we both have a Switch, on the video version, you can see both of them kind of behind us. I have the red and blue version, and Kendall has the Animal Crossing edition.
Gotta love those mint green and baby blue Switch things. What are those called? Joy-Cons?
Switch things, yeah. We are going to be gaming with Nintendo Switch Online, and I know Nintendo's not really known for their quality of online sources, but it seems like the kind of games that we both would want to play each other were on this system. So now that you've had a Switch for a week and a half yourself, and we've had a Switch in our household for the entirety of the duration of our marriage so far, what kind of Switch games have you really liked? What has been your favorite Switch game?
My favorite Switch game? That's a good question. I mean, obviously, I'm a big fan of Animal Crossing, which is kind of funny because I remember before we got married, Jonathan had an older version of Animal Crossing. Was that on your Wii?
Yeah, it was City Cult.
And like he would play it like randomly before, like while we were talking before he was going to bed or something, especially during grad school. And he would always be like, I always thought it was dumb. I was like, why do you want to like play this really slow game where you like plant things and go fishing. You don't even go fishing in real life. Like, I could not understand why he wanted to play it. I mean, I thought the animals were cute, but it looked terribly dull to me at the time. But sure enough, now that I started playing Animal Crossing New Horizons, I do get the appeal. It's quaint, it's relaxing and calm, and all your neighbors are always happy to see you, and it's a good time. So I do like that one. And then, of course, you've got Mario Kart, right? Like, that was probably, even though we didn't have a Nintendo system, well, I shouldn't say that. We eventually got a Wii, but we didn't have that many games on it. And we didn't have Mario Kart. But all of my friends had Mario Kart. That was definitely a big thing throughout the years of sleepovers and hangout sessions with friends. So it's fun that we have Mario Kart now, and that we get to play that with our friends when they come over.
For sure. Breath of the Wild, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, is definitely one of my most played games on the Switch, and one that I'm continuing to enjoy because I actually haven't finished the downloadable content on it. There's a lot to do, and one of the things that we found especially accurate, there's a YouTube video called Girlfriend Review, and what it's like when her boyfriend plays certain games, and Breath of the Wild must have more than 1 million views on it at least, because it is incredibly accurate, from the sounds of the radar to the sounds of the shrines to we have a Korok back there that was bought on Etsy. For those of you watching the video version, we have our own little custom-made Korok on the little tic-tac-toe grid shelf that we have. And it was just an incredible game to get lost in and discover. It's been joked that it's essentially a climbing and discovery simulator with how much you're just climbing and exploring. But
it is a pretty game too.
It's a beautiful game. And one thing that we'll talk about is it's surprising how the Switch built upon so much the Wii U, because two of the best-selling games, Mario Kart and Breath of the Wild, were also on the Wii U and are still incredible sellers on the Switch. And that's been like a single player game, though when you're able to be in the same place, it's kind of a social game where there's always kind of questions that come up. What's this? What's that? What's going on here?
I do ask a lot of questions. Sorry, not sorry.
I really thought Smash Brothers was going to be one of my favorite, but that's a game that's, I think, much harder to get to if you don't have a ton of friends that can just come over. And since the pandemic, when we didn't have, like, Animal Crossing was much more of a thing going to our friends' islands than people playing Smash Brothers. But since that's one of the games we have on the list to try to play, I'm curious on what you're going to think of Super Smash Brothers when we play it together. So now that we've hinted a little bit about some of the games that we're going to be playing, let's talk about the kind of format on how we're going to discuss and rate these games. So, Kendall, would you like to explain the first part of that?
I will try. Jonathan will likely correct me. But basically, it's going to be a rating system where we are going to rank each game on a scale of 1 to 5 across 4 different kind of categories, so to say. So the 4 categories are going to be gameplay, value, design, and relationship. So the idea is, like, for gameplay, we're going to be trying to figure out, was the game intuitive? Was it fun for both of us? Is it kind of, was it just a good experience or not so much? For the value, are we getting the bang for our buck? Is this a game that we're going to come back to? We're going to play it over and over again? Is this something that was just kind of a one weekend or something thing, and then it'll probably just collect dust on the shelf, And
the digital shelf, since they're all downloaded.
That's true. You can't even sell them at the art sale anymore, y'all. So yeah, is it a good value? Is it worth the money? Although some of these, as you'll find out, are actually super affordable, and we're not going to break the bank on this podcast. For which I'm grateful. Anyways, in terms of design, is it well designed? Is it is it pretty? We talked about, Breath of the Wild being a really pretty game, even though I've never played Zelda. Like, it's one of the few games that I don't even mind watching Jonathan play because it's just a good experience. So does the design, is it glitchy? Is it weird? Is it jerky? Does it give you a headache? Things like that, And then finally, which is, particularly important for our podcast, the relationship aspect. Is this going to be something that makes or breaks our marriage or friendships or whatever? This is probably a terrible combination now that I think about it, while being not good at video games, am a highly competitive individual. So we'll see, how some of this goes. So those are the categories that we're going to be ranking kind of a 1 to 5 on.
Yeah, and there's a couple things that are really important there. One, we're only going to be reviewing Nintendo Switch games that are multiplayer online. So that limits us a little bit, and this isn't an exhaustive podcast. We're not going to play every single multiplayer online game on the Nintendo Switch and rank them. So our ranking system will be pretty individualized or to our experience. And actually, Kendall's going to have her ranking and I'm going to have mine. So our rankings may differ a little bit. And part of the gameplay is going to be, is this accessible to someone who plays video games all the time, someone who's new to the series or the genre? And also, we're going to, based on those scores, maintain a ranking list. I'll have one, Kendall will have one, on what is the best games in order from greatest to the least of them all available on the Nintendo Switch. Kendall alluded to some of the cheap options we have or what's included with the Nintendo Switch Online. We have the family plan, and with that comes Super Nintendo and NES games, and if they're two-player, you can actually play them online, and those don't cost anything. So those will be in a separate ranking list than the games you actually have to pay for, that we've mostly done digitally, because when you have a family plan and you do it in a certain way, which is each Switch has a main account and each game is assigned to a main account and a main Switch. And for example, if we bought a game on my main Switch, but on Kendall's account, we can both play on the same digital copy against one another, which is super complicated. In the show notes, I'll put a link to a article which it can explain how you can potentially save money if you're on a family plan with Nintendo on the Nintendo Switch Online family account, how you can use the same digital edition of the game to play each other is another kind of money-saving thing.
So for most of the games, we only have one copy of it, which is nice.
Yes, we will have to figure out on some of the other ones how to make sure we can both play. So we each have our own list. It's not an exhaustive list, and Switch releases will be on a separate list from the Nintendo Switch Online, NES, and Super NES titles. Ooh, that's a lot of information.
It was, but it's going to be great. It's going to be good stuff.
I think that leads us to, what exactly have you been playing lately?
Lately, I feel like we've played a lot more games because we got a lot of new games, and I've been testing them out before we actually part ways.
The Switch multiplayer sale.
You need to tell me how to play them before I leave. But yeah, we definitely have been getting into Splatoon 2. In fact, this is super nerdy, but it's been really sweet. We joined, there's like a Splatoon 2 Facebook group of like mega fans, and they're like the sweetest people. They just love themselves some Splatoon 2. And I've been, watching all their posts and taking mental notes of any of their favorite weapons or different, I guess strats, so to say, on the different types of things, especially
how to do salmon runs.
Yeah, it took me.
Kind of horde mode where all these bosses and fish anthropoid pods.
Yeah, they're salmonoids. There's a lot of different kinds, and you have to know how to kill each of them in a very specific way. So thank you to all of my Splatoon 2 online people and Jonathan for helping me figure that out, mostly. So we played a lot of Splatoon 2 lately, and And then, of course, my Animal Crossing. I started a new island, so it's slowly developing. I think I have 3 neighbors now, maybe 4.
You've also been playing a game that is available on Switch, even though you're not playing it on Switch.
That's true. Okay, so that is worth mentioning, because we also have an Xbox, so we do have Xbox games as well, but some of them, they are cross-platform. And so I mentioned Spyro in my throwback to my childhood gaming days, and for, was it birthday? Christmas, for an occasion where I get a gift from Jonathan, he got me the Spyro Reignited trilogy for the Xbox, and just because of the way life happened, that was a while ago, and I actually hadn't touched it. I hadn't even opened it on the Xbox until about a week and a half ago, and I'm happy to tell you that I have completed I've beaten Spyro 1, but I'm not 100% yet. So if you know anything about Spyro, that last level where it's you have to get 100% to get it, I haven't done that yet. I think I'm at a solid 95%. So I'm almost there. Just got a little bit more treasure to figure out. So those are mostly what I've been doing lately.
I have also been playing a fair amount of Splatoon 2, testing out some of the games that we will be reviewing, and some of them that we won't be reviewing, at least not exactly the same version, is the Planet Puzzle League series for DS. We were using DS Download Play, where you can, with one cartridge on a Nintendo DS, and you can also, one of them can be a 3DS. You just have to run the DS download on the DS Lite or regular DS. You can, with one cart, play the versus mode, and since this is our last week for at least until Thanksgiving, and it is August at the time of recording, that we get to be under the same roof. I thought we would play some of that kind of versus mode, and that is known as Tetris Attack. You match the colors, you try to get combos. In some ways, you might think it's similar to Puyo Puyo, but all the blocks come from the bottom, and they function a little bit differently than the blobs in Puyo Puyo or Tetris. The blocks in Tetris. I always really enjoyed that game, even though I'm not particularly one of those wizards that you can look up on YouTube with it. And another thing that I've been getting into just a little bit is looking at how Breath of the Wild continues to have these new things that are found in it, from a random square of land which functions as lava to hidden items and ways that people break the game. I can't do half of those things. I can't even do a quarter of them, but they're really fun to watch on YouTube.
That's true.
Which also, Mario Maker is a mainstay on YouTube for us.
Oh yeah, we watch a lot of people play Mario Maker. We don't play a lot of Mario Maker yet. Maybe more to come. We
will see if the multiplayer works. That is a game that it is as fast as the slowest person who plays internet connection. Here, I have a great internet connection.
Internet here at our apartment. I don't know what the internet will be like at my friend's apartment.
We will have to see.
Yes.
So, as we begin to wrap up a little bit, I want to give us a preview of what we're actually going to be playing for our first real review, episode 2. Do you want a drum roll? I'm sure it'll sound great on the microphone if you bang the desk. Wonderful. I'm sure that was great for anyone wearing earbuds.
You're welcome.
We are going to go classic, and really classic. Not talking about retro games, but games that are so retro they aren't typically video games. So it's called...
Does that make us a hipster?
No.
No, okay.
It is the second decade, third decade?
How
do we measure the new millennium?
That's a great question.
More than a year into 2020s.
Math.
Anyways. That's to say hipsters don't exist anymore, I don't think.
Wait, what?
We'll figure out.
We'll have to debate that out later.
We'll figure that out later. It is 51 Worldwide Classics Clubhouse Games. So the official title is Clubhouse Games 51 Worldwide Classics. Is everything from chess, to a version of Sorry, which is not called Sorry, to Rock'em Sock'em Robots, which is not called Rock'em Sock'em Robots, Chinese checkers, the solitaire, Hanafuda cards. It is worldwide, and it is all these kind of classic games. Connect Four, that's not called Connect Four. I can remember all the ones that are typically like a branded thing. Mm-hmm. They're called something different. To Pool, to slot cars. There's a ton of different games. We're going to play a fair number of them that are online multiplayer and let you know my impressions. I think that this will be a good game, that some of the games are casual enough that we could probably actually hold a conversation while playing.
Yeah, for sure. Because a lot of the games are definitely like what you would think of with like a family game night, right? Like you're sitting at the table with like your board game or your deck of cards or whatever. Like it's designed to be conversational. We're just going to be doing it online.
Speaking of online, I want to let you know where you can find us and follow us online. We have our website where our podcast will always have the latest episodes. It's longroadgamecast.com. We're also on Twitter at longroadgamecst. I got rid of the A in cast because it ran out of characters.
Awkward.
But Instagram and Facebook, facebook.com/ and instagram.com/ longroadgamecast, one word. Follow us on both of them. We'll be updating those with our very hottest takes on video games.
We know you can't wait to hear those.
All right. Well, it's been fun. It's been great, but it's not been great fun.
Wow, you pulled out a real old one for that. Oof.
But it will be next time because we'll actually be playing games.
That's true.
And so until then,
Jonathan's gonna lose, just so we're clear.
The competitive spirit is already coming out.
I might let you win like a couple. How about that?
We will see. We will see. It will be my word against yours because we're not recording any of the games.
Oh, that's true.
So would you like to say goodbye to everybody?
Peace.
We're Jonathan and Kendall, and starting tomorrow, my princess will be in another castle. How sad. Goodbye!